Christians shouldn't even be involved in politics, or we don't talk about these things anymore. Let me give you some suggestions. When we talk about the First Amendment, this freedom of religion, there are two elements in it. There's a free exercise clause, and there's the establishment clause. Most of the court cases in recent years have almost exclusively focused on the establishment clause. The government cannot establish religion, which again, during Tocqueville's time, simply meant that there would not be a national denomination. There would be no nationally tax-supported church. Could you do it at the state level? Yes. And in fact, during the ratification of the Constitution, a number of states had those tax-supported churches. So in the state of Indiana, could we have a tax-supported denomination? Wesleyans? Sure, if we wanted to. Could we have no religion at all? Or, yeah, because these restrictions were on the federal level, not at the state or local level. But where things began to change was in a court case in 1947, Everson versus the Board of Education. That's a pivotal one because it establishes a new precedent upon which later decisions would be based. And they don't use the Constitution, they use that letter that I gave you. It's Jefferson's letter to the Danbury Baptists. And in that they extract a phrase that most people now think is actually in the Constitution. That there's a wall of separation between church and state. And that wall has come to mean that religious influence, that affinity that Tocqueville talked about, has to be broken. So this is where it starts, and subsequent court cases have reinforced this idea of this wall of separation principle. And that has filtered all the way down to state and local levels by the process of incorporation, where the Supreme Court, using the 14th Amendment, incorporated the First Amendment restrictions, again, which were primarily for the federal government, and now make them apply to the state and local governments. So if a local school board decides, hey, let's post the 10 Commandments in our schools, can it do that? The Supreme Court says no. Because even the local school boards are connected, are incorporated in this understanding of this wall of separation. And, here's a sad fact, many Christians believe that. Which is why we get sort of weak, anemic pastoral prayers at anything political, if they'll even show up at all. Because we believe that, oh, that's political. I need to stay away from that. Can't talk about that. I see that as being a problem. If Christians back out of politics, back out of the discussion of freedoms and rights, what's left? Will we have the dominant view of freedoms, that is, freedom to do whatever I want? Will that prevail? Bless you.
Thank you.
Questions? Comments? Monica?
Well, I have a question. Kind of everything that we see, like how government has just been like getting apart from religion. Do you think it's kind of like a consequence of the fall?
Well, I think we're probably just as fallen back in the early 1800s. And yet at that point, we were still able to have a strong influence. And it was because people legitimately believed that Christians should speak to political issues. So for a priest to come to a political rally that's raising money and weapons for a bunch of freedom fighters was considered completely appropriate. Not, oh, I don't know, separation of church and state, should you really be talking about those political things? Whereas today, I think most pastors, if they were to show up, would give some sort of bland prayer that wouldn't bother anyone, no matter which side you were on. Because God doesn't take sides. This guy prays like God takes sides. Maybe he does. I don't know if that answers your question or not. Kaylee.
As Christians, are we not allowed to support war? Is that, I don't know, I kind of get that vibe. I don't know.
I think that's a fair vibe to get, that, yeah, we really shouldn't be involved in anything that would be conflictual at all. And there's a pacifist orientation.
There's like a difference between supporting it, I don't know.
And fighting in one?
I don't know, my brother's in Afghanistan, so it's kind of touchy, but I think there's a difference between supporting it and supporting, I don't know, like the people, I mean, I don't know. Is it wrong to support?
Is your brother a Christian?
Yeah.
Good for him. And he sees no problem in terms of being a soldier and being in the war.
It's not that he doesn't support it, but he, I don't know, supports his country. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what the right answer is, but
and see,
I'm not going to sit here and say I don't support him going over there and like risking his life for us.
Yeah,
you know?
but clearly, you know, from his perspective, and I bump into soldiers all the time who are Christians who actually almost have a sigh of relief when they find that there's a professor who says it's okay to fight and to be a soldier and you can still be a Christian, instead of kind of getting this sort of mushy stuff about, well, is that really the thing that we should be doing as Christians? I don't find anything in the Bible that says Christians can't be soldiers.
I don't know what the right answer is, but...
And clearly, this priest has no problem with people fighting for a just cause. I think that part of the problem is that there are different groups and different beliefs out there that say Christians should not be involved in any of that. I respect that view. That's a pacifistic view, and they won't be involved in government, and they won't fight in those battles. I respect that. I disagree with it, but I respect that. The only problem is that view, which is a religious view, can only be maintained when somebody has fought for that freedom. So hopefully we've got enough heathens around who will fight for our freedom of religion. That's the sort of convoluted logic you have to wind up with. Who protects the freedom of religion? If we don't have Christian lawyers to stand up for students who are told in a middle school class or during lunch, oh, you can't look at your Bible, it's during school hours. That's not right. So unless you have Christian lawyers, Christian politicians, Christians who are willing to engage in battle, who's going to fight for these freedoms? God's just going to wave a magic wand, okay, bink, you now have freedom of religion. If you don't fight for them, you won't have them for very long. Does that help?
Not really. I don't know.
Okay.
Can you support, I don't know, is it wrong to support the people that go there, but not the war? Like,
why are you so afraid with supporting war?
I don't know. The concept of like killing people and stuff, just like,
Yeah.
It's wrong, I feel like.
Is killing people's always wrong? And that's an idea that gets that's propagated. Killing people's always wrong. We kill criminals all the time.
Yeah.
because we say you forfeited your right to live by taking someone else's life or doing something else. And so we do it in terms of a punishment.
God's punishment, though. Not all
Yeah.
to give.
Yeah, but no. Wait a minute. In the Old Testament, God says, pardon?
I don't want to argue. I don't know what the answer is.
Well, but this is what college is for. If you don't engage, you get nothing. You're here to argue, to learn how to argue in a good way. To argue on the basis of knowledge and of understanding. Not just, well, you have your opinion, I have mine. Who can know? So, look, here was the point that's made. I want to challenge it because it needs to be challenged. Is that God's judgment to make? God gives the Hebrews a set of laws and says, for these certain crimes, what do you do to the people? You kill them. Who does the killing? The people do. God gave them the Mosaic law, and there were a few instances of divine judgment. We've established that with Korah and with Ananias and Sapphira. But for everything else, it was the responsibility of the people to say, okay, you've got this person who's committed this certain crime or sin. You have to remove them. Now, death was not the only penalty, but it was a penalty. So if we say that, well, killing people, even for crimes, is a sin, then what we're saying is God commanded the Israelites to sin. Okay? So, are there still difficulties with people who agree to be a soldier and fight in a war? Sure. Because now, and here's the difficulty, you're no longer having God sort of saying, go fight against this people. You have a president who may or may not be a Christian. And so sometimes you're sent into battle to fight for causes that you individually you may or may not support. And that's hard, especially as a Christian, because you're now in a position where my country sent me here. And there may be times when a Christian, as a soldier, may have to be a conscientious objector and say, I can't do this. I have to step down. And there are ways to do that. I think so. But these freedoms, if Tocqueville is right, if what he's telling us is right, are connected to virtues, connected to religion. If we cut off that, people will look for this freedom to do whatever we want. It's a very dangerous place to be. Very dangerous place to be. And we have to wrestle with this. Is this hard? Yes. I've probably made Kaylee uncomfortable. I've had students come up and tell me, you made me so mad. That's not what I'm trying to do. If you have to get mad in order to wrestle with this and say, okay, I disagree with Conrad, I just can't figure out why. And then you sit and you think and you chew on it and you read something and say, okay, now I can say why I disagree with Conrad. Good for you. Because that's where you need to be. If you just suck up what I give, you're a little sponge. SpongeBob SquarePants. That's not what it's about. It's about wrestling with ideas and being able to defend them. And you'll get there, but you have to work. It's hard work, wrestling with ideas. They're not very manageable sometimes. Because one idea, someone will explain one idea. If I had a good pacifist up here, they would explain it beautifully. And you'd sit there and go, oh, that makes so much sense. I'm a pacifist. And then you get someone else who's a Christian in the military, and they would explain their position, and you say, oh, that makes so much sense. Go military. Then you sit and go, wait, those are different things. Now what do I do? Yeah, ideas are unwieldy. They require a lot of effort to work with, so that we can know deep down what we really believe. And so then maybe when we read the paper and we say, do students have free speech? Maybe it'll bother us. And we'll say, wait, shouldn't we be able to do some of these things? That's my hope for each one of you. But I'm out of time, so I need to stop talking. I wish you all spring break. And thank you so much for coming today.